Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session under our STEM series. So, we are so excited to have you join us for what promises to be very practical, inspiring, and high energy experience. My name is Estella Hilda Anneman, and I'm the coordinator for American Corner Abuba, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So American Spaces provides access to current and reliable information about the United States through book collections, internet access, events and activities for everyone. Now in Ghana, we have three American Spaces. We have the American Corner Aboba, where I'm presenting live. We also have the American Center, found at the Embassy, US Embassy Ghana, and then we have American Corner Kumasi. So wherever you are, you can have access to these amazing resources and programs all across the nation Ghana. So today we are zeroing in on one powerful concept, which is AI gamification, the use of game-like elements to increase engagement, motivation, and learning outcomes in the classroom and beyond. And leading us on this journey is a seasoned game developer who is using creativity and technology to reshape how we teach, learn, and tell stories. So introducing him, he's Robertson Norte. He's the lead game developer at Letiat, a creative studio that designs African-inspired games and digital comics to promote culture and innovation through storytelling. He's a self-taught coder and passionate gamer. Robertson has developed games like Puzzle Scout and showcase African history and art in engaging ways. He's also a member of the Gamers Association of Ghana and is committed to growing Ghana's gaming creatives. Robertson uses game development as a tool to educate, inspire, and transform how we engage with learning. Before I give the place for Robertson to start the presentation, so please stay. With that being said, I will hand it over to Robertson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Estella, for that intro. And welcome everyone to today's session on reimagining teaching with AI. In this session, we are going to be looking at reimagining teaching with AI, right? We are going to look at some issues that we are currently facing with the current landscape in teaching, the new technology that everyone is talking about these days, which is AI. You can't breathe online without hearing or seeing something that has to do with AI. We are going to look at some of the positives that it brings to us in the classrooms, especially given how we want the next generation of kids to leverage on this technology to become better and also become more productive, as well as some challenges as well, right? Yes, and would probably also look at the possibility of having a quick demo, but I'm sure that's something that most of you are well familiar with. So yeah, this promises to be very engaging, but it's not going to be engaging without you. So again, I'm going to encourage you to be as engaging as possible. Yeah. So I'll just start with the presentation. Okay. So about me, I think Estella did a very solid job on the introduction, but my name is Robert Sinote. I'm the lead game developer and developer at Letiat. I've been in this role since 20. I need to update the date. That slipped out. So I've been the lead game developer since 2022 and still going. And my main motive is to help reshape the mentality behind gaming, in Africa. But I intend to start with Ghana. Um, I've been graced to have participated in the building of these projects. First one being Africa's Legends. This game is a game about our African mythos, so the mythological characters in Africa as well as some fantasy characters. So in this game, you get to play as the likes of Anansi, Oya from Nigeria, different characters across Africa, right? Just dwelling. And at the end of it all, you also get to learn about them and understand where they are from, their motives and all that. Um, then the next image we have over here, that's Puzzle Scout. So Puzzle Scout is a game that has to do with retelling African stories. So the African history that we have, right, starting all the way from Ghana, is encapsulated in this game. And we tell a story as the player progresses through the story. So you have stories ranging from colonization, Ghana's independence, stories from Mali, Egypt, like different parts of Africa being retold in a very simple, small form factor. So that's Puzzle Scout. You realize that after you are done finding all the words on the board, you have a piece of a story that you get to explain. And in the last image, we have Sweave. I think Estella was struggling to pronounce a game that is Sweep. This game is basically showing or retelling how kente is made in Africa, right? So during your gameplay, you get to explore different patterns that have been made here in Ghana, that's kente patterns, as well as different African symbols that you can also learn about. So there are various vast African symbols throughout the entire game, and the more you play or you progress through, the more you also get to learn about these symbols. So you have the likes of Chinami and the rest. You would ask yourself, why are we doing this, right? So for a very long time now, we've been consuming, European content, right? So that's Western content. And it has gotten so bad that right now you can go and see a kid, or a young person, ask that person about their cultural heritage or anything that has to do with that is culturally relevant, and they have no idea about what you're talking about. They have no idea about indigenous symbols and all that. And we we are stepping in to sort of reshape how people perceive our culture. That's starting from this country, our country, Ghana, right? We want people to fall in love with our cultural elements again, but not bore them at it. So that's why we are packaging education in the form of fun, right? So our games that are packed with a ton of fun. However, you learn at playing them as well. Then I get to talk a bit about my organization, that's Letiat. Um, Letiat was founded by Ariam Teria and Wesley in 2009. And since 2009, we've been operating. We are actually the first full-time game dev studio or game development studio. We've been making games, comics, and animations, right? So as well as VR apps as well, that's virtual reality apps. So basically any form of interactive media that can help us tell our stories, we utilize, right? Yes. So that brings us to today's session. So why is the traditional model, right, that's of teaching, why is the traditional model of teaching no longer sustainable? You'll be asking yourself, like, why is the traditional model not sustainable? Why are we here today talking about AI, right? So you realize that even way before the emergence of AI, it's quite prevalent that most students don't really get it in the classrooms, right? So a teacher can come in or a lecturer can come and stand in front of the class, talk for long hours, be writing very spooky things on the board. And at the end of it all, they expect the students to, churn out everything that has been taught. there's this funny saying where they're like, you have 9 teachers teaching different subjects, but they expect one student to be able to, accommodate all the 9 teachers in their head. So you ask yourself, why is this thing not sustainable? Why is it not the best way of trying to teach people, right? So you realize that with most young people who have that vibrant mind, they don't learn passively, right? So the sort of teaching or the sort of tearing down of information on these young people with just talking about whatever you want to teach them doesn't really work well. So why would the students or the kids be more drawn to cartoons like Dora, which require you to actively participate in what you are watching? Dora would ask you, can you see the tree behind me? And then the kid would be like, yes, that's a tree, and be pointing the tree. Why is it that they would want to actively participate in something like that and not participate in a class when a teacher is asking questions? It's because they like to learn with things that keep them active, right? So knowledge, another aspect too is that another thing that you'd also want to look at is that the knowledge that most of our lectures present lags a bit behind, or it's a bit behind what is currently being upheld, or what is the current standard. So you would also look at some of the methodologies that our teachers apply in most schools. For me, at least, I remember back in the day when I was still in school, at that time, Windows 7 was still a thing, or Windows 8 was still a thing. But you go to class and your teachers are teaching Windows XP, Windows 98, and things like that. So you're wondering if whatever you're learning is viable in the real world, because curriculums have been built around old methodologies. But you realize that with technology and developments, those things don't stay stagnant for long, right? There are things that evolve rapidly, right? Even with the emergence of artificial intelligence, you realize that its growth is very exponential, right? What you'll be working with today is not going to be the same thing that you'll be dealing with tomorrow. So these form of teaching or transmitting information to a younger demographic who tend to learn more with things that they actively participate in doesn't really gel well with them, right? Another thing that you would also realize is they also tend to assess the wrong type of skills. That is memorization and recall. So in our education system, though you would have a situation where you would go to lectures for or class for a very long period of time, which is maybe a term or two. And at the end of the term, you're expected to have an examination. And the examination is basically you being able to recall and memorize whatever that has been taught. It doesn't really test your ability to see if you really understand whatever that has been, taught throughout the period, right? And this is very artificial because at the end of the day, that is not how the real world operates. You're expected to memorize something and then come and chew it, even to a point where you would have what's it called, objectives, and someone can sort of chew the answers as A, B, A, B, A, B, all the way to the last points, and then they'll come and shade the same answers at the exam paper without even understanding exactly what they are doing, right? So there is no real care into what you are learning, and you realize that in most cases, people end up completing or finishing school before they actually come and learn what they've already learned back in school to understand it, right? So for me, for example, most of the things that I learned during my time during computer science, I had to come out of school and go and relearn some of these things for the sake of understanding them. because the way it was taught back in school, I remember in school, you even have situations where you have to be writing code on paper, right? It's not sustainable, right? So you also look at a graph of students that fail class as opposed to those who excel. And those who usually excel in class, not all the time, those who usually excel are those who have the opportunity or the avenue to explore other options in terms of how you receive and process information. So you realize that the likes of those who do extra classes with private people or private teachers who have the time to actually teach the kids with very practical means, right? For example, you would find most concepts in mathematics being just theoretical. However, you ask yourself that this algebra that I'm learning or this logarithm that I'm learning, what exactly can I apply these things to? Once you actually figure out or you see the application of what you are learning, it becomes very easy to consume that thing, which I was trying to demonstrate with the idea of Dora, right? That you are actively participating with what you are learning. So it's like I'm learning 1+1. Why am I learning it? At the end of the day, if I'm counting money, I can be like, okay, 1 cedi plus 1 cedi is equal to 2 cedis. And now that I'm seeing the application of exactly what I'm learning, it becomes very easy to follow along with what I'm learning. And most kids or most people learn practically. So you realize that for those people, they end up having to deal with the theory parts of things. And at the end of the day, they are failing their classes. And it seems that they are not smart, but that's not the case. They are not being taught the right way, right? And most people learn actively, like I was saying. So then it brings me to my next question. Why reimagine teaching, right? Which I've spoken a bit about, but why do we necessarily have to reimagine it? Okay, so like I said before, like I brought our attention to before, the traditional methodology is not really the most effective and it's losing attention, right? If you look at even the nature of the system these days, most kids have the exposure to cellular devices like mobile phones. They have tablets, they have computers. And I'm sure most of us on the call had the opportunity to be using phones later in our lives. However, you are dealing with a generation that are exposed to internet at a very early age. They learn exponentially over there, and then you are coming to now sit them down and bore them with a lot of exposition. It's not going to work, right? So you have to sort of level up to be able to meet them halfway or go beyond what they are already exposed to, right? And which brings me to the second point, what I just said. Students today are digital natives. So anything that isn't digital is sort of alien and wouldn't gel well with them. And at the end of the day, even what you are not trying to digitalize is going to be digitalized in the real world at the end of the day. So something like even, I also did arts in high school. So in high school, you would see that, okay, our arts, we are doing things physically. Although at the end of the day, those things are very important to help you understand the foundations of why things are the way they are. Those are not places that we should find ourselves leaning more into, right? Because at the end of it all, these people that we are trying to convey information to or get them to understand what exactly we are trying to get them to understand, they are going to be exposed to digital tools at the end of it all, right? So now on the last point, we now have the case of AI and gamified tools. Now you look at how different governments are treating the whole ideology of AI, right? I think the US recently puts AI into their curriculum, right? So it's a must that kids in elementary schools and all learn AI. China is also doing the same thing, right? So where does that leave the likes of Africa? In my opinion, in a very bad state, because our next generation is going to find out themselves competing with people that are way out of their league. Even with now, you see all these AI advancements. You see that, okay, today China is saying that they have this next AI product. The states are saying they have this next AI product. People are talking about the next AI products, and it's like Africa is a place that everyone is waiting to consume rather than be the next place to create. We are now a consumption hub. How do we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have to overly rely or depend on these people, but rather compete or rub shoulders with them? And that's something that we really have to consider or look at, especially for the next generation. Okay, so we now have to also look at AI in the classroom. Like, why should AI be something that we have to consider in our classes? Already in some schools, they don't even allow things like laptops in the classroom, and now you're talking about AI. Like, why should that be the case, right? Um, so I think most people these days find themselves in a situation where um, they feel like AI is about to replace them, right? And that sort of mentality brings about resentment. So, for example, there's this new hot AI tool in town. It can write so well. And me being a writer, now I'm worried and scared that people will be resorting to the AI rather than coming to me to write their stories and whatever they have for them. But that is not really the case. At its basis, AI in a nutshell can't think for itself, right? Unlike human beings with the ability to be creative with whatever that we find, contextualize the things that we see. So we can see something and add more context to it than what meets the eye. AI is just something that sort of churns out what information it has. So for example, if it has only information about watches, right? If AI only learns about watches, you can't go and ask that AI about cars. It wouldn't work. However, a human being can sort of see that car and try and make sense out of it. That's okay. It's something that has wheels and moves, or add some bits of context, although it wouldn't say that's okay, this is a car outright. Um, it can at least understand what it's looking at. That's not the case for AI. So this is not something that is not going to replace you. And the sooner you understand that and leverage the ability it offers, the sooner you sort of also level up. In any working scenario, the person who uses AI to expedite their work process is always going to be at an advantage over the person who finds themselves using the traditional method a lot, right? So for example, the likes of ChatGPT, which has been a very big buzz lately. Most people use ChatGPT, Grammarly, and the rest to write their emails. Most people use AI to take notes. Most people use AI to do so many other things. These people find themselves being more productive at the end of the day than those who find themselves not using it. Then you would also probably end up thinking to yourself that, okay, what then happens to your cognitive features if you find yourself overly depending on AI? So for example, you are now at a point where your whole life is being run by AI. What happens then? Okay, we'll look at that in a second. So this brings us to our next talking points, right? That is gamification. So Duolingo in a nutshell is a gamified language tool. So it's Gamification is basically the act or the process of making anything at all feel like a game. And a game in a nutshell is anything that seeks to challenge you in any way. So anything at all that seeks to challenge your way of thinking, like it's an activity at the end of the day. So any activity that seeks to challenge you into being creative, into opening your mind up a bit, or learning things in a very different format. That's an activity still is more or less a game. And if you look at Duolingo, you have things like streaks, you have things like how the answers and questions are presented to you. You learn something and then they are examining you right after you learn the thing. And the whole learning process feels like you are playing a game, but you are learning at the same time. That's in a nutshell is gamification. And for those of you who use Duolingo or you've heard about it, you would realize that when you're using it or you're learning with the app, it feels like you are learning at a very exponential rate. Most of the things that you process or you study over there are things that stick with you for a very long time as compared to someone coming to stand in front of you to show you the exact same things that you need to do. For example, learning French. For me like this, somehow I passed my French exams and all that, but all of those things were cheap and poor. None of those things were, if you come and stand in front of me and ask me anything in French, I would end up looking at you with a blank face because I genuinely don't get a language. But it was more or less like a requirement if you wanted to make progress in class. And that's why we had to learn it. But if it was in a very different form factor, which was gamified, right? I'm sure I would have been a very fluent speaking French person. Who knows? Maybe in a different reality, I'm speaking French actively. But that brings us to the gamification again. You learn, but the learning is very engaging, right? It's very, very engaging. And that engagement brings about motivation, right? And at the end of it all, there are also rewards that you deal with or are posed to you that you have to finish a task, you get a reward. So if you going back to Duolingo, Duolingo has a very rewarding loop, right? For everything that you do, you get maybe some points for doing something. You get streaks for being able to follow through your learning for a long time. If you don't come and learn, you see the owl, that's the app mascot coming to tell you that, say, you're missing your streaks, come and do this, come and do that. Everything feels like fun and it's highly engaging and you get some sort of mental rewards. You're not getting money out of it at the end of it all, but it still feels rewarding. Why is that the case, right? And all of these things brings about creativity, right? And challenge as well. And human beings are generally people who like to compete, right? So human beings, in a general sense, like to compete amongst themselves. The sort of things that you find people competing on are very weird at the end of the day, but they still compete over it. Even with I'll just throw a small shot at ladies. You see ladies, trying to look prettier than the next lady, and they are competing over that. You see men trying to get a better car than their fellow man. Like these are things that people find themselves like competing over because generally speaking, or like naturally speaking, like this is the nature of man, right? Man likes to compete. And if you find a way to use this sort of mindsets in the line of education, you now find people who are, buzzing or bursting with so much energy, right? And passion for what they are learning, right? And at the end of it all, it's goal oriented, right? So there are some specific goals that you aim to achieve at the end of a session, right? For example, going back to Duolingo, after once you start and you select a language of preference, you know that I'm going to be on this app for maybe the next 30 days or the next year, just trying to be better at French or trying to be better at Spanish, trying to be better at whatever language that you seek to learn over there, right? So that is basically gamification in a nutshell. Hopefully next time, if you go and hear this term somewhere, you're able to, stand with your chest out and speak about it like the experts you are, right? So, just hashing over whatever that I spoke about. So it turns learning into an interactive experience. We also explore game elements like points, levels, challenges, feedback, and loops. And the benefits you get from gamifying anything is motivation, participation, enjoyment, and then retention, right? So gamification, right? So this isn't too extensive, but a small look into it would be how I am using images in my slides, right? So for example, this image here, it's not something you would pay too much attention to. But if you should see something like that resembles this one day, it would ring a bell in your mind that, okay, I saw this somewhere. And who knows, maybe it will end up like, ringing gamification in your head again. That gamification ends up bringing something we call reinforced learning. So you learn something over and over again, and that sort of thing sticks in your head. Again, if any of you ever watched Dora before, the times where they were showing Dora on the TV stations or the TV channels, Dora also uses a gamified experience, right, to teach kids, right? Things that have to do with their environments and all that. Science in most schools is very practical. So you realize that most students that end up taking a subject like science end up enjoying it or find it relatively easy to answer questions about it. When some teachers are teaching about animals and the rest, some of them would want you to draw the animals, and then label the parts of the animal and all that. Some teachers would also go the extra step of bringing a live animal, like in the European schools, they bring like a frog and then they allow the students to cut up the frog and things like that. There's no way I'm going to end up cutting a frog and not remember that experience, right? So you would realize that most of these things, they stick with the students because they end up engaging with those things or interacting with the things that they are learning. And in the long run, if they can't even remember a definition for what that subject is, they can at least remember what they interacted with, and they would be able to speak about it from their own experience. That is a very strong advantage that gamification brings to any learning ecosystem at all, like anywhere at all. So for me personally, we have times where maybe we would go and organize a boot camp with students and maybe want to teach them about game development, game design and all that. And the reason why most of the students would end up getting most of the things that we are trying to teach them is computer science is very, very practical. So whilst you are consuming the theory, you are practicing it on sports. And it really becomes very hard to not, express whatever you are doing. You may not remember a definition, but you understand exactly what is going on. So that is a very strong advantage that gamification brings, right? So now the bread and butter of the whole session today, that's AI. We are going to look at how AI-powered gamified tools can help you also educate your students a bit, more or better. Okay, so these are some tools that, people have used. I personally haven't used them in some of the sessions that we've had, but I've had a chance to at least explore the first one, which is QReport, right? It allows you to have sessions with students. So if everyone is connected to, say, your classroom using their PC or something, they can all actively engage with you. And it has different features that it offers to tutors, right? So things like allowing the students to take on avatars. So and anonymous names. So the students can pick up anonymous names, and you, the moderator, can see who is who, but the students can't see who they are or don't know who they are. And you can pose a challenge or a question or anything to them and allow them to play around in the software and answer questions that you may also throw at them. We would get the opportunity to look further into QueryPod, but there are different ones that you can also have a look at. That is DFIT. It allows you to turn curriculum topics into leveled content. So, for example, if I pick a topic like osmosis and diffusion, right, I can just give that topic to the AI and it will generate a structured content out of it. There's also Kahoot and Canva AI. Canva allows people to make presentation and slides and all that. So if you ever find yourself wanting your students to make presentations, work on presentation skills and all that, this is a tool that they can benefit greatly from. I can attest to Canva. I've used Canva for most of my lessons, for students trying to present or teach other students about different things that they've learned during their whole time, learning different subjects that we've taught them. It really comes in very handy. So we'll look at QueryPod here, just a small clip of it, and then I'll walk you through the service or the software. Okay, so
this is a QueryPod classroom. Students join a QueryPod lesson with a pin. Then just click start to feel the buzz of your entire class. Writing, thinking, sharing, learning together.
I use it just about every day in one of my classes in some form or fashion. It's a different way of learning because all of them are engaged.
With QueryPod, students actively engage in multiple ways. With anonymous nicknames, everyone feels confident to participate. Only the teacher can see who's who. Students vote on each other's ideas, sparking lively discussion and building motivation from learning together.
For me, I'm not shy, so I'm heard, but some people are really quiet, so they get to be heard better with QueryPod.
QueryPod takes learning further with immediate AI feedback. In real time, students get actionable ways to improve and the chance to reflect and try again, all while the learning is still fresh. Moderation keeps control in the teacher's hands with visibility at every step. You can create a QueryPod lesson on any topic at any grade level in minutes. QueryPod lessons bring back the excitement to look up from our screens and learn together. Try QueryPod today.
So we'll get to, we'll do a live demo of it shortly, but for now, let's move on to the next slide, right? So we just took a look at QueryPod and, just like the narrator was expressing, any type of students at all can actively engage over here without feeling tense. We have an academy currently running, which is our STEAM Academy. And in our academy, you would meet all sorts of students coming in. Some of them are very, very active. Some of them are very shy. There's just one student, he barely talks at all in our current cohorts. He barely talks. And it's just until recently we got to know that, okay, he can actually speak. At first, we used to think he was a French student. That's why he doesn't talk or something, or he's a French person because his name is in French. But apparently he can speak English and understands English, but he's just that shy and timid. This is a service that allows people like that to be very expressive. And for him, it's very expressive when it comes to things that have to do with interacting or interactivity. But when it comes to let's just ask questions and then you put him on the spot, you're in trouble. He will just stand there and look at you. So we've looked at AI, we've looked at SecuriPod and, seeing some of its use cases in the video we just watched. But you ask yourself that, okay, what are some challenges and considerations that we need to look at, right? So let's be honest, we are in Ghana, right? So we are in Ghana. That's the first challenge that I would put out there. The whiteboard the touchscreen board as the lady was using in the video is something that most of us haven't had the opportunity to experience. Most of us haven't gone to stand by a big board and touched the screen to scroll on different menus and things like that. Most of us still write on the marker boards. So that's access to digital components that allow some of these things to be possible is immediately relegated, right? And this is something that I don't know about the current governments, but I think most of our governments have spoken about addressing, but then they haven't really put in that effort of addressing. The best that they do is to give students very low-powered laptops to learn with. I mean, it's something at the end of the day, but I mean, we can do better, right? I also see that most tutors try to provide some of these digital tools to the classroom and allow the students to explore and experiment with some of these things, which is a very big plus. But I think it would be very beneficial that, we push for the provision of some of these things in wherever we find ourselves. Because like I said earlier, we have to position and condition ourselves that we are going to end up competing rather than consuming. Right now, we find ourselves consuming so much and we don't create. That brings a very huge problem, especially for us being in a third world country. What that poses for us is if whoever is providing that service today says that they are shutting it off, especially in our region, we are in big trouble, right? So think about all the things like WhatsApp, your Instagram, all these tools. These are things that are provided externally. If those people, decide to turn it off for a day, they've put some of your lives at risks because that's where your livelihood, is dependent on. And yeah, these are some things that we sort of have to look at addressing, moving forward. And for some of us, we are at the points in our lives where we feel like we are a bit too old to achieve that. So if you feel like you are at that point where you are too old to cause these sort of changes, why not inspire someone else to, think in that light that, okay, me growing up, I'm not going to be a consumer, I'm going to be a creator. It's very important that we condition our next generation to think in that light. Then the next one, not all AI tools are equal. So for whatever tool that you would want to use to expedite or make your teaching process even much better, please do well to look into it extensively, research it well and all that, just to be sure that it's something that is proven and very dependable in terms of its delivery. Because most of these tools hallucinate. They are not trained on enough data, so they don't really know exactly what to do. And if you try and ask them about things that they don't really know much about, they'll spill things that are inaccurate. So you do all to assess whatever tool that you want to use. And in everything, you also have to maintain that humanity vibe in your classroom. Do not find yourself in a situation where you are overly dependent on a tool or a service for how you operate, right? What that happens is it brings a disconnect between you and the students. They would look up to the tool more than you, or probably find themselves undervaluing you. as a tutor, right? You find yourself finding a very good balance between using a tool or a service and yourself, right? And be a moderator rather than being a follower, a consumer, just like they all are, so that at least your presence is still recognized. And like, okay, this point I already spoke about. Then over automation fatigue. This is basically the fatigue you get from over automating your life, right? So now your whole life is being run by AI here. Your emails are being written by this, and then your mentally become slow, because these are things that you used to do that keep you active, but then now you are lazing about because there is a tool or a service handling your entire life. Again, find a very good balance between between both of them. If you are someone who uses AI a lot for email, do your possible best to also scrutinize the information being churned out and assess it well before sending it. Do not find yourself just doing whatever because you have a tool that makes your life easy. And the devaluation of teacher intuition, I think I spoke a bit about this, yes, but don't find yourself in a situation whereby maybe you are too dependent on a tool, especially in a classroom setting. Your presence needs to be felt at every step, right? And then there are also concerns for data privacy. So most people worry about sharing sensitive information with AI to get more content out of it. And this is a very genuine worry, and this is something that you have to be very concerned about, because at the end of it all, most of these tools are being run by big organizations that feed off your data. So you have to be very careful the sort of data you share with these tools. Right? Don't go and share some secret stuff with an AI just because you want an email generated for you. So be careful and beware of the sort of things that you share with some of these tools. So this is QReport, the interactive lessons that we had a look at, right? And I think creating an account with over here is relatively easy. Just that they'll ask for your country of origin. I didn't see Ghana over there, so I just picked a country that was relatively closer to us. So you can check it out. I think they are quite recognized at this point in their venture, right, to give students that interactive lessons. So if you are done signing in, you would have a dashboard that looks like this. Very simple. You have the ability to create lessons and create reports as well, or check your report. So you can come here. That's the first option. Like I said, it's very easy. Once you hop on, you realize that it's very simple. It's not flooded with a lot of buttons and UI to confuse you. And when you try and create a lesson, so you see the prompts by here. So start by describing your lesson. So for example, a lesson on colonization. Is colonization the best thing I could have come up with? Okay. On osmosis and diffusion. So this is a very simple prompt, right? So what will you teach today? So I'm like, I want a lesson on osmosis and diffusion. And you can come over here and sort of pick what you want out of it. So do you want a full lesson? Do you want quick writes out of this? Or do you want a test preparation out of this? So maybe if I want a test out of osmosis and diffusion, I'll select the last option. You can also show some ideas for lessons if you don't have any ideas. So I'm going to generate a full lesson on this. So you give it some time and it asks a couple of questions. So it's asking for the grade level. So what grade will this osmosis and diffusion lesson be for? So our grading system in Ghana is a bit different, but if you are teaching a younger audience, you can just look at how grading systems are and pick a very simple grade. So say I want 5th grade lessons, and then I put a comma, and then it's asking for standard alignment. So would I want to align to Common Core, NGSS, or a specific framework? So this is for different countries have their own standards in terms of how their teaching needs to be. Our education service system is not here yet, so I would rather go with no specific standard. And mind you, this is a service that uses natural language. So I'm the one choosing to add comments in my prompts. But however you want to present your ideas or your express yourself, that's up to you. It uses natural language. So you can speak to the bots like you would speak to an actual person, right? So instructional focus. So should the lesson serve as an introduction? So I want an introduction, right? So I'll just copy and paste. So let me add, I want an introduction as well. And is there any particular theme or everyday connection? So, and you can come up with the theme. So I want the bot to come up with its own theme. So it's going to take some time to generate, and once it's done, we are doing Common Core. Okay. So I didn't know that I'm not a teacher in the natural sense, right? So thanks for bringing that up. So I mean, if you are the one asking this bot, maybe in your first prompt, you can say osmosis and diffusion using the Common Core standard alignment with some specifics that you would want to add, right? So you can see that after I send the theme and all that, the standard, it's generated a review objective. So if I'm okay with everything that has been stated over here, that's the learning objective. So it's saying that students will be able to explain the difference between diffusion and osmosis and accurately depict the direction of water or particle movements in a simple. These are all things that I didn't add today. I forgot to add basically, but it has added all of that to this for me. If I want to ask or add more to the prompts, I can keep chatting, but if I'm okay with what I'm seeing over here, I can just generate a lesson and it will go ahead and generate it for me. So it's going to take some time to think, and yeah. So it's generating slides out of the topic that I gave it. Right. So the slides that I did today I did with Google Sheets or Google Sheets, in another universe or in another world, I could have generated it with QReport, right? And I'm sure most of you wouldn't even realize that, okay, the slides I'm using is AI generated or something. So once it's done with all this, you can still go through and ask anything over here in the small space over here, or you can save this as a lesson. So I think it's still generating. So once it's done, I'll walk you through that. We are done. So yeah, if anyone is connected to a PC and you go to this link, that's Curie.live. You should be able to participate in this lesson that I just generated. That is how simple it is. So that's all.
Wow. It's really amazing how
Yeah, so there are
cheap.
activities that people can participate in. There are parts where you have to draw, whatever that's, how osmosis works, how water moves. It just all just like, from a simple prompt, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's all.
Wow. Thank you so much, Robertson. We really appreciate your time for taking us through this. I mean, I'm really wowed about how easy, you can really just put a prompt there and then generate slides for a lesson, and even the examples that have been cited there to make it more interactive for students. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Robertson. Thank you so much for the Letiya team for doing this amazing session with us. And we know that this thing will go a long way to help a kid somewhere to enjoy lessons more and be great people in our nation. Thank you so much, everyone. And till we come your way again, have a great day. Bye.